My name is Suzanne. Standing here in this old gym, surrounded by faded banners and scuffed bleachers, the memories come flooding back. It's been years since that fateful night, but the emotions are as raw as if it happened yesterday. I remember the moment when the man in the dark, long coat stood up in the back row. His calm, deliberate presence cut through the chaos of the room. The gym had been filled with cruel laughter just minutes before, but now, there was a heavy silence. He said, "Play it again," his voice low and steady, as if he held the power to stop time. I was on stage, holding my guitar like a shield. I'd just been through a nightmare of a performance. The microphone feedback had shattered the spell I'd started to weave, and the laughter had returned, sharp and cruel. I'd felt my lip tremble and my fingers falter, and for a moment, I thought I was going to break. But then, this man appeared. I blinked, confused, not sure who he was or what he wanted. His words, "You were finding your truth. Don't stop now," echoed in my ears. I took a deep breath, nodded to myself, and lifted my guitar. The first chord rang out steadier this time. No one laughed. The kids who'd mocked me earlier sat frozen, and the man in the coat closed his eyes, arms folded loosely, listening. I started to sing again, and this time, my voice was no longer a whisper. It was a declaration. I thought back to how it all began. I lived in a small apartment above a 24-hour diner with my mom, Lily. We didn't have much money. My mom worked long hours at the diner, coming home tired every night. But she always supported me, even if we couldn't afford the fancy things. I'd found my guitar at a flea market for just $10. It was missing a string, but I fixed it with fishing line. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. I loved music. It made our small, noisy apartment feel like a world of its own. When our school, Lincoln High, announced the annual talent show, I knew I had to try. I taped the flyer to the fridge and told my mom, "I think I want to do it." She looked at me, saw the spark in my eyes, and warned me gently, "Those kids can be mean." But I shrugged. I knew I had to take the chance. In the days leading up to the show, our apartment became a rehearsal space. I practiced between doing my homework and having dinner. My voice would break between verses, but I always started again. My mom stitched a small tear in the blue dress we found at a second-hand store. It wasn't new, but when I tried it on, I said, "This will do." The night before the show, I sat on my bed, tuning my guitar. Mom sat beside me and asked, "Are you nervous?" I smiled and said, "Miss Thompson says I don't need perfect things to be amazing." I didn't know then how much those words would mean. The next morning, the gym was packed. There were glittery banners hanging crookedly, and the air was thick with excitement and the smell of perfume. Kids in shiny dresses and suits posed for photos, and parents carried cameras like trophies. I stood beside my mom, holding my guitar case with both hands. My borrowed shoes flopped a little as I walked, but I held my chin high. When my name was called, I squeezed my mom's fingers and whispered, "I'll be okay, Mom." I stepped into the light alone. My blue dress shimmered faintly under the stage bulbs, not because it was fancy, but because I stood tall. The gym fell quiet, but it was the wrong kind of quiet. I heard whispers from the front rows, someone snorted, and another kid muttered, "Oh, this should be good." The laughter spread like wildfire. I kept walking. My guitar looked huge on my small shoulders. I reached the mic stand, adjusted it like we'd practiced, and exhaled. I could feel my knuckles turning white around the pick. I struck the first chord, and it was a small, uneven sound. Giggles erupted from the bleachers, and my heart clenched. I looked down, adjusted the tuning peg, and tried again. The second chord was smoother, but the laughter didn't stop. I thought about walking off the stage, but I didn't. I took a long, steady breath, and when I sang the first line, my voice cracked. But I didn't stop. Verse by verse, I found my rhythm. The crowd quieted, not out of respect yet, but confusion. I sang about our small apartment, the stars shining through the cracks in the ceiling, and my big dreams. Something in the room shifted. I could see Miss Thompson, my teacher, sitting 2 rows ahead, leaning forward, smiling through tears. But then, just as I reached the chorus, the microphone squealed, and feedback blared through the speakers. The spell was broken. Laughter returned, louder and more cruel than before. I felt my lip tremble, and my fingers faltered. I froze, my shoulders rising and falling with ragged breaths. I wanted to run, but something inside me held me back. I stared at the floor, deciding what to do. The MC looked uncertain, and one of the judges started to stand, maybe to end my performance. But then, I lifted my head, found the microphone again, and said softly, "Sorry. I can start over." The room went quiet, expectant. I adjusted the strap on my shoulder, struck the strings again, and this time, the sound was cleaner. I took a breath and began to sing from the top. My voice was low at first, cracked around the edges, but there was a quiet defiance in it. I sang about the cold nights, hearing my mom's tired footsteps, and promising myself that things would get better. I could hear the quiver in my throat, and I knew my mom was listening. Somewhere in the crowd, a cough echoed and faded. There was no more laughter. My voice grew stronger. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. The harsh fluorescent lights seemed to soften, and the banners on the walls faded into the background. I could feel the last of my fear burning away. When I hit the final chord, the sound lingered, heavy and electric. Then there was silence. And that's when I noticed the man in the back row. He told me to play again, and I did. This time, my voice soared. I'd never sung like that before. By the time the song ended, the gym was quiet, not out of pity, but because no one dared to break the moment. Then, one teacher started to clap, and another joined. Soon, the whole gym was on their feet, applause thundering through the rafters. I saw tears on Miss Thompson's face, and the boy who'd laughed first was clapping, his cheeks flushed with shame. The man in the coat climbed the steps to the stage. He smiled at me and said into the mic, "You have a gift, and gifts like that deserve to be protected, not mocked." He introduced himself as Mr. Henry, a music producer in town. He said he'd grown up with nothing, and music had saved his life. He thought it could save mine too. I was frozen. I stammered, "I don't have any money." He just smiled and said, "You've already paid with your courage." The gym erupted in cheers. People who'd mocked me earlier were now standing on benches, shouting my name. Mr. Henry handed me a business card and invited me to his studio to record my song properly. I looked at my mom, and she nodded. We left the gym, and people kept stopping me, offering compliments that sounded like apologies. Outside, the spring air was cold against my skin. I held my guitar case tight to my chest. When we reached the car, I looked back at the glowing gym windows and whispered, "Did that really happen?" Mom unlocked the door and said, "It did." I smiled, small and tired, and said, "I guess I'm not the poor girl anymore." She brushed my hair behind my ear and said, "You never were. They just couldn't see it yet." In the following week, I went to Mr. Henry's studio. It was a narrow space above a coffee shop, filled with the smell of coffee and old records. I sat in front of the mic, my guitar across my lap. Mr. Henry adjusted the mic stand and said, "Just sing it like you did that night. Don't chase perfect, chase honest." I took a breath and began to sing. The sound that came out was gentler, but it carried a new kind of confidence. Every imperfection felt intentional, every crack in my voice a piece of truth. When the last note faded, Mr. Henry whispered, "That's it." They uploaded the song that same evening. Within days, messages started pouring in from people in other towns. They said the song made them cry, that it reminded them of being overlooked and finding strength. I didn't brag. I just smiled and said, "Guess people listen when it's real." The next talent show came and went, but I was too busy writing a new song about hope. Now, standing here in this gym again, I look out at the students. I know what it's like to be judged, to face cruelty. I tell them, be brave even when they call you names. My voice fills the room, calm and unshakable. I see the spark in some of their eyes, and I know that maybe, just maybe, I can inspire them to find their own courage.